that it's a miracle. I'm sorry, I have to say it. You ladies don't know what it's taken for my new friend. I hope I can call you that.
See.
For her to be here today. Her team is here. You've already heard from her team. And I'm so blessed that I believed that we were going to share a stage one day. I believed that she was supposed to be part of this conference. I believed that WONDHERFUL is supposed to be part of all my women's events somehow. And I prayed a lot. And as you already know, we talked about it in the lunch, how I just believed in the miracle. And I believe that Heather Palacios today is going to share something that she probably wouldn't have shared if it wasn't for the challenges that she faced in the last week or so. So I am so honored, but I am so excited to listen to what God is going to do through you today. I know what it feels like. I've talked to your team. So again, ladies, I'm going to show you a quick little video.
I really believe in my heart that one more suicide's one too many. My name is Heather Palacios, and I'm the founder of an organization called WONDHERFUL, where we help people so that they will not give up. Years old, my biggest temptation and my hardest comeback has been with suicide. But one day while recovering in a psychiatric hospital, I had my moment with God, and I said in a prayer, if you could get me out of here, I will dedicate the rest of my life to helping people not end up here. That was 21 years ago. I'm still here, and I'm still helping people not end up there. Our mission is to save one more life from suicide. I'm it. I'm the only one of me, and you're the only one of you. God saw it fit to only make one Heather Michelle Funk Palacios, and I'm choosing to be her. And you need to choose to be you too.
Ladies, please stand up for me. Big round of applause for Mrs. Heather Palacios.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you.
Stage is all yours.
Okay. Hi, ladies. Thank you guys for having me. I do have kidney stones, so bear with me that I'm not usually my moving all over the place self. I'm afraid I'm gonna like drop a stone on stage or something. But thank you, David, for having me. Thank you for believing in me and all of us. Thank you for being a fighter. My pastor always says, talk long, talk wrong. So this is going to be super short and to the point. Thank you to my team, too, for all you guys going before me, paving the way, sitting here, collaborating, helping everybody while I laid on a heating pad all morning. So when I was 8 years old, I lived on 254 South College Drive, Bowling Green, Ohio, and was being bullied. And not like, not alarming type of bullying. It was pretty intense. I won't get into all the details, but I do remember one day in particular, I showed up at my classroom and my desk was missing. And all the kids were in the class laughing, and I was sheepishly looking around to try to find my school desk, and they had moved it into the corner of the room, facing the corner of the room. So I made my way over with my little backpack to my desk so that I could put it back in the center of the classroom where all the desks were, when I noticed on top of my desk was a piece of notebook paper, and up at the top the title read, Why We Hate Heather Funk, and all the students had signed why they hated me. And that was just one instance of bullying that just messes with you. And so later on, I went home, I wrote a letter, it was a suicide letter, and I mailed it to my grandparents. And my parents got a hold of that, and you know, in 1982, there wasn't conferences like this, and there wasn't semicolon tattoos, and there wasn't movements and coalitions for mental health. You know, we were on our own for me being that young, wanting to die. But my parents did the best they could with what they had. They called the local church, and somebody came over and prayed with me, and we just kind of moved on from that incident. Now, when I speak to students, I love to have props because they get so distracted. But this is my 8-year-old journal. I'm 50. I just turned 50 a few weeks ago. And yeah, in that half-century club, what? But I keep this as a prop, and so that I can corroborate my story that, yeah, at 8 years old, I wanted to die. And if you flip through these pages, you would see a girl that did not want to live. We moved on from that incident, and my family moved from Ohio to Chicago. And when we moved to Chicago, again, I was being bullied and mistreated and left out because I was the new student. I remember one day in particular, we were going to watch a film. Okay, I totally dated myself with that word film. Okay, but like, projector, and you put the film on, and it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You hear brrrr, okay? It was in art class, and we all sat down, but I didn't have any friends at the time. The ringleader of the bullying had gotten all the kids in my class to not associate with me. So I sat in the front of the classroom, by myself. So I was sitting here by myself, and she pulled this projector screen down, and all of you guys were back there. And while I'm sitting here, I could hear everybody laughing behind me. And come to find out that the bully had told everybody, when the lights go out for the film, everybody pick their nose and fling their snot to the back of Heather's head. And I just remember, first of all, that's totally gross, but I just remember sitting there looking at the movie just with tears coming down my eyes. And not long after that, I would write another suicide letter and put it on the counter and get ready to put my plan in motion when there was a knock at the door. Now, this can only happen if your name's Heather Michelle Funk Palacios, because I can't make this stuff up. It was the Orkin bug man, and he needed to come in and spray for bugs. So here I am, 14 years old, ready to take my life. My means is right there on the counter next to my suicide letter, and he walks past it, spraying and spraying, and by the time he was done, David, my whole family had come home. So it just threw off that plan for that day. But interesting, during COVID, when we were like bored out of our minds, and some of us were actually trying to bake, that lasted a hot minute with me, I started cleaning out some storage bins, and I found my 14-year-old suicide letter. And unbeknownst to me, I had kept it all this time. I can't bring myself to read it, but I do have it. And this is especially powerful when I talk to students, because then they know that my story is for real. They also know that I'm still here. So it's a huge encouragement to students, but hopefully anybody. So that attempt failed. And then fast forward to now I'm in college, and was dating a guy for like 5 years in college, and I don't want to mention any names. Dale, whoops, hate it when that slips out. Never date somebody that's going to have a future with a microphone. It will haunt you.
You didn't know.
Yeah, that poor guy. One of these times I'm going to be speaking, he's going to like me in the crowd, and I'm going to die, But he, after about 5 years of stringing me along, just got right in my face and was like, I just want you to know I'm never going to marry you. You're not even marryable. You're that crazy. And just broke my heart. I think it broke my spirit. I think it broke my mind. Because not long after he had said that, I would take a bottle of pills and try to take my life at age 20. I was rushed to the hospital where they had to do what they needed to do. Moving on, I had to get away from that guy, so I moved to South Florida and started going to church. Back in the day, it was Flamingo Road Church. Pastor Dan Sutherland was the pastor. Started going to the singles group. I was kind of double dipping because I really wanted to date like a black basketball player. So I was kind of like going down to Miami to try to find one, but also going to the singles group at church. Hey, factoid, I got set up on a blind date with a Miami Heat player, but I went and checked him out before I showed up, and he was like, not attractive. So I didn't go. Good thing, because I ended up marrying the singles pastor at Flamingo Road Church, my husband, Raul Palacios. And we were married for a year, and all of a sudden once again, the thoughts of my mind became a monster, and I started to regret the mistake of marrying a pastor. First of all, I am not pastor's wife material, okay? If you all knew the things I've done, which thank God there are not pictures of, you would say she does not fit into the category of Baptist pastor's wives. But my biggest regret was that I was married and couldn't get out of it. And I couldn't reconcile being a woman married to a pastor who perpetually wanted to take her life. And so on July 30th, 2000, in the city of Davie, I made a very calculated plan and went to a liquor store and bought a lot of alcohol, became very inebriated so that I was numb, drove my car to the back of a Winn-Dixie parking lot, and started to take my life in my car. And while I was doing that, it had dawned on me that I had not left a note for my husband, and I did not want him to think ever that it was his fault. So while taking my life, I called him on my cell phone to let him know what I'm gonna do is not a reflection of you. You're a great person, but you need somebody better. And he was able to kind of keep me on the phone with casual conversation, stayed calm, and was able to kind of identify my location. And he showed up very quickly to where I was and tried to stop me. Now, I was unstoppable because on this day I was done and I really wanted to succeed. So I had become very violent and unusually strong. Experts would say that's mania, psychosis, those kinds of things. I definitely was in that state of mind, and my husband was unable to stop me. So he had to call 911. All the first responders showed up, all the Davie first responders showed up, surrounded my car, and they were unable to stop me. I was one 27-year-old woman being able to ward off all the first responders and continue taking my life in my car. It was a harrowing experience for everybody. I've been married for 23 years and I've seen my husband cry 3 times. And that was the first time. They had to tranquilize me due to the violence I was exhibiting toward myself and others. And so they knocked me out, took me to the hospital where they treated my injuries. And par for the course for somebody like myself, I'm in triage and they're treating my injuries and I start cracking jokes because I always think I'm like the funniest person in the room. And I'm like, I can't even kill myself right. What a loser. And like no one's laughing. But I'm like, I'm so funny, and yeah, no one's laughing. So then I kind of got a little firm with the triage nurses, and I was like, okay, obviously I can't kill myself. I screwed that up today, so let me out of here. I need to go home. I'm starving. And that's when somebody came into my triage room and said, yeah, about that. You're not going home. And I was like, come again? Squeezy? Yeah, they said, you've been Baker acted. I was like, what's that? Baker acted. Well, in the state of Florida, if you are unfit to be in society because you're a threat to yourself or to others, the state of Florida has the permission to forcibly detain you in a psychiatric ward. So they said a van is waiting for you, and I had blood on me and piss on me and barf on me. I was very, very messed up. They didn't care, right? This was 23 years ago. There was no dignifying of people struggling mentally 23 years ago. We've come a long way with it. They would never treat us today the way they treated me 23 years ago. They put me in a wheelchair and they put me in a white, unmarked van with 2 men. I mean, that would never happen today, okay? Yeah. And they drove me to the, I can't talk well, I'm sorry. No, it's me. I want to be a part of that conversation over there. What are you guys talking about?
So when you said, you got Baker acted.
He shared his story today.
I got Baker acted.
Oh, I'll have to listen to that.
You hit a nerve.
I recorded it.
Oh, good, I'll listen to it. Put me in a wheelchair and deposited me in the hallway of the psychiatric ward because there wasn't a room available. And they just kind of wheeled me in, the 2 guys, and they put me up against a wall, and I was just sitting there hunched over, and they threw a sheet over me and left me there. Like an animal, right? Like an animal. And so I sat there for a while, and then they finally came to me and they said, we have a room, but we're going to put you in isolation because of the violence that you had exhibited and towards the other people, the responders and yourself. And I needed to be in an isolated room. I was violent. I was very violent towards the first responders because they were trying to stop me killing myself, and I wanted to kill myself. So they finally put me in a room in isolation, and they locked me in. They took everything. They stripped me naked. They only let me keep my socks, lest I use anything to harm myself. They told my husband he needed to leave. Again, I'm hungry. I had a lot of pain from what I had done. I had blood on me. I had vomit on me. Just shove the animal in the cage and lock the cage is what it seemed that they were displaying. And again, I'm just so thankful that mental health facilities and mental health providers have come a long way. We're not animals because we lose our minds. Because you're not an animal if you have a heart attack. Well, I was having a brain attack. And I didn't need to be treated like a rabid animal. I needed to be treated like a human being. And we've come a long way, so I'm very thankful for that. So that night, it was kind of like my point of reckoning, because I was like, so mad at God. Here I am, 27 years old. I've tried perpetually to die by suicide. I'm in a marriage to a Baptist pastor. I can't back out of it. We can't divorce because he's a pastor. Tried to kill myself, failed at that. Now I'm locked up in isolation in a psych ward. Where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? And this is why I will say I advocate for the Baker Act and the 72-hour hold, is because had they let me go home, believe me, I would have succeeded that night. I needed to be locked up for my own safety. And the state enforces that, and I'm very thankful because I believe it saved a lot of lives. So after that, I just kind of, it was like the worst night of my life, July 30th, 2000. But I started talking to God because that's all I had in isolation. Who else was I going to talk to? Myself? Well, I do that all the time because I'm nuts. So I was like, I'm going to talk to God. And I just started talking. I was so mad, and I was crying, and I started saying Bible verses, just this ongoing, all through the night dialogue with the Lord. And I remember at one point just kind of making a deal with him. And I don't know if you can make deals with God, but David, I think he gives concessions to people like me. And I was like, God, if you could get me out of here, I'll dedicate the rest of my life to help people not end up here. And so that was 23 years ago. And I have not gone back to a psych ward. And I have dedicated the last 23 years of my life to helping people not only not end up there, but not end up dead. Because I do believe in my heart of hearts is that one more suicide is one too many. Now fast forward to COVID. So between 2000 and 2020, I've worked very hard with my weakness. Now we all struggle with something. And I know mine's kind of in that funky, unique category. Not a lot of pastors running around with suicidal temptations talking about it. But I work hard to defeat and to have victory over this battle in my head. And I've learned over the last 23 years that with God, all things are possible. Because I'm still here. So I follow this script. I take medication. I go to church weekly. I journal. Thank you for the journals. I get outdoor activity. I see a psychologist. I see a psychiatrist. I have boundaries, and I know my worth. And that formula is working because I'm here.
Yes, you are.
So I follow it, and my team can testify that I work hard at following the script of beating suicide when you so earnestly crave it. COVID rolled around, and that played a number on me. By now, I've got a full-on organization and a ministry, and I've been blessed to be able to go around and share my story. And I don't go and share my story normally to dignified royalty like you guys. I roll up to homeless shelters, prisons, detox centers, because those least of these are usually the ones that want out. And I want them to live. All of them. So I'm, going around speaking and blogs and podcasts and all this stuff, and then COVID hits, and the pandemic caused a shutdown. Now, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but when you struggle with suicide, public enemy number one is isolation. I was like, is God playing like a joke on me or the government? Because we are mandated to isolate. Isolate is the biggest no-no if you have a history with suicide. Because where do you commit suicide? By yourself. You don't do it in public. So one day in the spring, and I have to own up to this and take responsibility for the fact that I allowed myself to be alone. I shouldn't have done that. Knowing my propensity for suicide during COVID, I should have made sure that I was always around somebody. But my family went to the Keys to go fishing and I was home alone. And for the foreseeable future, I looked at my iPhone calendar and I had no life. No appointments, no speaking events. I couldn't go to the hospitals where people had attempted suicide and visit them. I couldn't do funerals in person. I was doing funerals as a chaplain on Zoom. Can you imagine? No, there was nowhere to go and there was nothing to do and no one needed me in the spring of 2020. And that started to mess with my head because I was home by myself. And I started to entertain two suppositions that I had never thought of before. And let me just preempt that by saying that the devil will not use old tricks to get you to do new destruction. Right. If those reasons to take my life didn't work in the past, he's not going to try those again. So he got very crafty and very creative. And in the spring of 2020, on the kitchen floor, preparing to take my life, was because I started to hear something I had never entertained before. Heather, I said to myself, have you ever thought how embarrassing it is to be married to you? You're crazy. Your husband is this dignified, upright, educated pastor. Now, you could take your life today and he would be sad and he would be a widow, but it also would open the door for him to maybe meet somebody else down the road a little more normal. I was like, oh my gosh, I'd never thought of that before. And because I was alone, I had no one to say, that's not true. Right. So I believed it. And it's like the devil in my head went one step further, just to really kick me while I was down. Have you ever thought about how embarrassing it is to have you as a mom? You've got these two teenage boys. They're good with their scholastics. They're good with their athletics. They go to church. They love God. But you're the crazy mom. And your social media shows it. And how embarrassing it must be for DJ and Andy. Now, you could take your life today and they would miss you. But again, life would go on and they would be able to maybe be adopted into a relationship with your dad and a stepmom who, that stepmom might be more normal. And that was it. I was convinced. And so I powered off my phone so I couldn't be located, and I started to put my plan in motion. And while I was in the garage, I was crying out to God to help me. I just kept saying this Bible verse that I had memorized as a kid, those who call on the name of the Lord will be saved. And I was like, I'm calling on you, Lord, I need you to save me because I don't want to live. And as I started to say that out loud, my mind had been made up, die. But God is not going to give up on us if our minds give up on us. He's still God, and he's going to move and have his way with you some way, somehow. And so it was in my gut, in my belly, that I started to have this impression, you're not going to die. You're going to practice what you preach. Now, Heather, you have gone around the world. Well, not really, the half of the world. I've been in this hemisphere for 23 years telling people when they're in this very situation you're in to call someone. You tell 5-year-olds, you tell 95-year-olds, you tell everybody in between. When you're in the situation you're in, 2 words, call someone. Because all of us know whoever we call in that moment is not going to say, do it. Right. So that's always been my axiom, especially to children, because we've I've ministered to children that have attempted suicide at 5 years old. I've seen their cut up arms. So you have to call someone. And my gut was like, call someone. You're letting you know better, call somebody. Now and even my gut was just impressing on me, okay, fine, you're gonna take your life today. But at least call somebody before you do. So funny. And it's true, I didn't want to die a hypocrite. My gut was right. Because if I had died that day, I would have died without a legacy. I would have died with a hopeless destiny. That when push came to shove, I didn't practice what I preached. So I got out of the garage and I powered up my phone and I called the pastor's suicide hotline and I got a voicemail. What? Are you kidding me? They had COVID hours. And so I left this crazy lady, Oprah snot, ugly cry, message, press pound to send, and then I just had this, wait a minute, what did you just do? They're going to get to the office on Monday, and they're going to hear that. And I couldn't get it back. I couldn't press 8 to delete because I pressed pound to send. And so I was like, shoot. So then I had to open up my laptop, and I found a website, the website for the hotline for pastors that had an email. So I emailed them. You might hear a message in your offices on Monday. Just one, and try to make it sound real normal, kind of like something from you guys, like an email from you guys, very poised and professional. Put the sincerely, Pastor Heather. Send, all right? And then after I did that, the dogs had to go out and go potty, and then after that, my family ended up coming home, and Andy, my son, was starving, so I had to make him a meal, and then I had a headache, because it was a long day. So I laid down with some Advil, and I took a nap. And all of that to say, God can rescue us in the miracles, but I'm alive to also say he can rescue in the mundane. Because he did not use a miracle. If there wasn't some Shekinah glory in my cinnamon toast, in the figment of Jesus, it was a gut feeling louder than my mind. And a distraction one distraction after another. The point of it is that God is in the rescue business. And he doesn't want any of us to die before our time. We were brought into the world on our birthday, and we had nothing to do with it. It's the same with our last day. It's not ours to determine either. And in between the birthday and the death day, life's hard. I am not going to get up here and blow smoke and tell you guys that life's been easy. I still battle suicide, and this last year has been my biggest test. I have 3 younger brothers, and a year ago, my youngest took his life. You want to talk about a loser? You you encourage and help all kinds of strangers, but you couldn't save your little brother. And it's messed with me. Again, the devil just using new tactics, right, David? To get me to do something he really wants me to do. And I know what it's like to want to die. But I also know what it's like to get to live. And so anytime the Lord has allowed me to have a mic, I encourage people to live, even if they want to die. Right. I'll end with this. One time I went to Paris, France, to see the Mona Lisa. Yeah. Underwhelmed. I mean, all that trouble. First of all, the museum property itself is like 1 billion miles big. Finally got to the right museum, finally got to the right display, finally got through the crowds of people so I could get this one selfie with the Mona Lisa. And I was like, that's it? It's about as big as the speaker. That's the global phenomenal masterpiece? But it was good for me because I was like, hordes of people are lining up to see this stupid painting in a stupid case with this lady's stupid smirk on it. Imagine when heaven sees you. You're the only one of you. And you're not in a case. You're on the world, on a mission, because God wants you here. If you wake up breathing, that's your proof to keep going. And we all need to keep going when it's hard, because we're the only one of us. The world notices the only one of you. And if they miss it, that's on them. But rest assured, in heaven, there will be legions of angels. The word legion is equivalent to like 50,000. There's going to be legions of angels lining up to get a selfie with you. Because they've never seen you before. And there will never be another. So that's why we keep going. Because we're the only one of us. And nobody else can walk in our stilettos. Thank you guys so much.